Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today for this Monday podcast episode as we discuss a specific astrological topic or theme. And today's topic is meant to be encouraging, uplifting, and beautifully supportive as we're going to discuss a water grand trine that is beginning around the Libra new moon on October 21st. And then this water grand trine continues to unfold into early December. And I'll talk about why that is in today's show. But essentially, we're going to have some powerful activations in our intuitive abilities, emotional awareness, imagination, creative understandings, and healing potentials as this water grand trine is going to align planets in all three water signs for this ongoing, effortless flow of movement and connection. Now, a grand trine is when all three astrology signs in the same element sync up. In this case, we're going to have Jupiter in Cancer, Saturn in Pisces, and all four personal planets moving through Scorpio create this water grand trine for an extended period of time, all connecting in the third decan of each sign. Now, I'm going to go through more of the specifics, of course, but I wanted to give you the broad understanding of what this means. Now, to have a water grand trine that unfolds for a month and a half is a really big deal because that's clearly an extended amount of time when there is water flowing and in motion here that supports movement, that allows you to flow with changes and wants you to tap into more of your experience of the water element in your astrology chart as well as in your life. Now, water in astrology is associated with emotions, feelings, empathy, caring, sensitivity, connections, and how we experience more of an emotional lens on events and developments that are happening around us. A water grand trine is going to heighten what you feel and what you're sensing. This is where it heightens your empathy, your sensitivity, and your emotional capacity. You could feel that you are processing a lot with this water grand trine. With the energies involved, it does support emotional maturity, transmutation, regeneration, deep healing from past experiences, and elevating your intuition and psychic abilities during this time. So as I said, I will go into more of the specifics here, but just know that this is happening in the collective, but also working with you at a more personal individual nature. So be aware of what is coming up for you, where you do feel you're receiving more of those intuitive downloads, psychic messages, and deeper understandings. Now, when we think about water, water will move in a natural state of flow. Consider the ocean, the ebb and flow of the ocean, and how water is meant to be in movement, because when it is backed up, then there is a dam of energy that's created, right? It's withheld, repressed. And it can even become stagnant, dirty, and be lacking its natural life force. A water grand trine is bringing us into the wisdom of flowing with life changes, being open to what we're feeling and allowing it to run through us without holding on to it or overly identifying with it. This can be a time of a deep cleanse for you, an emotional cleanse, perhaps a purging of anything that has been stuck or stagnant within you. Because that water grand trine is going to want movement, and the movement occurs with greater ease, grace, and flow. It's also self-contained. So this lends itself to feeling like there's more you can handle internally on your own. There's more that you're understanding about how you are energetically composed, what you are picking up on and feeling. This water grand trine is going to bring you into your own well of wisdom, perhaps even helping you connect some dots around experiences you've had or imprints you've been holding and you didn't know how to understand understand them or you didn't know what they meant. A water grand trine brings in more wisdom, depth, and clarity as the energy continues to move. So there is a purging here that supports regeneration. And because of that, you could feel that you are emotionally purging, that there are things you need to do for your own emotional well-being that are supported at this time, whether that is a release of tears or sweat, whether that is moving water through your body and looking at if you're drinking enough water or if you need to actively purge it out, say in a sauna, or any steam to the skin. This could even feel like being on a liquid diet of some kind where you're just allowing fluids to run through you and move through you to release anything that has been stagnant or stuck and to feel that you're in a purer state. Now, I don't mean that just physically though. I'm looking at it energetically and how when we allow more of our intuition to truly run through us, it's almost like there's more that starts to run clearer and we tap into more of the truth and purity of our intuition that we can overlook or simply push away and ignore. Your intuition is always traveling with you through this physical human experience. And this could be a time when you are truly understanding more about your own intuitive gifts and what it means to embody your intuition more often and more regularly. So getting back to that visual of the energy running through you clearly, you might find that your energy vessel is willing to be purified now, that you're willing to allow more emotions and feelings to honestly move through you. There can be an intention here to authentically feel what you feel, to not put boundaries around it or to overthink it. This is also a way that we enforce our intuitive connections with the universe. So I feel that many people are going to have psychic upgrades during this water grand trine, that you're going to feel that your intuition is coming through very loudly, very clearly. And for many of you, you've already been living with that deep connection, but now I feel the upgrade is more crystalline. There is more purity in the frequencies, and it feels too like the energy widens, where if you've been on a narrower path with your intuition, I'm seeing it widen and maybe it becomes like a double lane or triple lane highway instead of just a narrow gravel path. There's a widening here of what you are meant to receive, understand, and work with. Now, water is highly receptive. Yes, water is certainly a force of nature. And if you've ever simply waded out into the ocean and you allow those waves to start hitting you in the thighs, in the hips, in the diaphragm, you feel the strength of that water. You instantly feel how that force is powerful and even overwhelming. And so what is the wise thing to do? Well, it's to swim with the waves. It's to dive in and work with the element, to allow it to support you, to be one with water and the flow of it, the movement of it. And so this water grand trine is going to be an invitation for you to be more receptive to what you're feeling and to work with it, to try not to overpower it or think that you can manage it. Rather, it's honoring what the water is bringing to you and what is flowing through you that can beautifully support you if you allow yourself to surrender and release. So a water grand trine is going to show you what you're ready to let go of. And even if a part of you has overly identified with it, even at an ego level or a mental level, it's going to be easier to let it flow through and let it go. And perhaps see it for what it was. Like, okay, that was just a part of my journey, or that was just something that I thought I really wanted at that time, but I'm understanding that it's made to move on. I am made to move forward. I am made to elevate at this time and to flow with these deep oceans of change that are happening all around us and within us. So this water grand trine is going to be a big deal. Now, it could be something that you feel in the background, or it could be more present. present. The water grand trine is happening in the third decan of the water signs, and specifically we see it strengthen around 24, 25, 26 degrees of the water signs, because we're going to have Jupiter in Cancer here making a trine to Saturn in Pisces. Now, Saturn is currently retrograde in Pisces until November 27th, traveling back to 25 degrees of Pisces. Jupiter is going to be stationing retrograde November 11th at 25 degrees of Pisces. So throughout November, Jupiter in Cancer is trining Saturn in Pisces. While one is direct, the other is retrograde. But this is important to look at because it means that this trine supports emotional maturity, personal responsibility. I feel there is an exchange here between that Jupiter in Cancer younger self who is growing, evolving, and celebrating in your ability to trust yourself. That Jupiter in Cancer brings our energy into previous timelines and previous experiences that shaped and formed us. Jupiter wants you to learn from where you've been, from who you've been, and what you felt. Jupiter in Cancer is showing you that it's okay to keep moving forward on your path, but try not to repeat previous lessons. Learn from them, says Jupiter. Be better because of them. Allow you to be wiser, more healed, and more in the fullness of who you are. And as this energy trines Saturn in Pisces is your mature inner parent, your inner adult, who realizes you are completing a phase of your life that has been important for what you've had to show up and take care of, for what you've had to tend to and slowly work through. Saturn moves slowly, so we don't take shortcuts. We don't get off easy here. We've got to put in the work. We've got to show up and make progress that's real. But Saturn rewards. Saturn brings about those accomplishments, that recognition of a job well done. And so Saturn in Pisces is bringing your attention to what you are completing and phasing out because you have emotionally and spiritually learned from it. You have been through a full cycle of growth here with Saturn. Saturn takes about 29 to 30 years to complete a cycle. And so Saturn is saying you're at a turning point in your growth trajectory. And this is something that both Jupiter and Saturn have in common. What you are learning, the wisdom you're obtaining, and how you're growing from your life experiences. And when they meet up in a trine, this is emotional celebration. This is happiness, love, true love, joy, peace, harmony. There's an uplifting quality here with this trine, and you could feel like you're finally seeing some of your past efforts pay off. This is where connections occur that are based on similar emotional frequencies. This is where there's a deep soul recognition from the universe of how far you've come. And now the new manifestations arrive. Both Jupiter and Saturn are connected to manifestations. Jupiter is the manifestations that happen quickly and easily, the invitations that arrive and the things that just show up without a lot of effort, whereas Saturn is the manifestations that come through because of what you've mastered, because of what you've done, and it's a demonstration that your hard work has paid off. It's been acknowledged by the universe, so here you go. So that's why I feel that this energy is really encouraging, because there could even be things that you forgot you have accomplished. There could be parts of your life or parts of your experience that you've mastered to the point that you've detached from that. You've stepped away from it. It isn't even in your forefront. But now the universe, in all its divine timing glory, brings it forward and says, this is yours. Emotionally, you deserve this. Intuitively, you are ready for this. There is prosperity, abundance, joy, and connection here. These are feel-good qualities. And with this happening around 25 degrees of the water signs, the third decan of every sign is a place of maturity, mastery, experience, and what you've learned along the way. So now in your chart, you want to look at if you have any planets or points in the third decan of the water signs, specifically 22 to 29 degrees, 22 to 29 degrees of Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, because these energies are working with you more personally. So the water signs are going to be beautifully supported here, and there can be some impactful turnarounds, some feel-good developments. Things finally connect, and there's stabilizing influences, especially with the Saturn involved. Now, you can also look at any planets or points in the late degrees of the Earth signs. So between 22 and 29 degrees of Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, as this water grand trine is going to help you in your forward motion, in understanding where movement is needed and necessary, tapping into more of your emotional world and getting into what resides within you that maybe you haven't fully embodied or heard. So there is an influence here to the earth signs that this water grand trine is going to support you in opening up. I feel it as removing anything that has been stuck or stagnant, getting back to a dam or a very strong boundary. The water can come through and push that over and move through that. There can be an overwhelm of water as well. So keep in mind that the water grand trine will be working most effortlessly with planets in water signs, but also supporting the growth and development of planets in earth signs as well. This is powerful feminine energy, yin, receptive energy of trusting what feels right and allowing that to be what guides you forward, working with these universal energies, allowing them to be wise messages of guidance and direction. With the water signs, there can also be a softening of rough edges, a softening of the heart and the mind. And as a softening occurs, a release can occur where you see what you've been holding, or if you've been guarding yourself or pushing back on something. This is a release of that energy, but in a supportive way, since the water grand trine allows for continuous movement. Now, not only do we have this Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces hanging out here towards the end of their respective water signs, but we're going to see a parade of planets move through the third decan of Scorpio, starting around the Libra new moon on October 21st. Around that time, we're going to see both Mars and Mercury in Scorpio starting to create that water grand trine. Now, Mercury gets there first. It is the faster moving planet, reaching 22 degrees of Scorpio, and begins to heighten that intuitive dialogue with both Jupiter in Cancer and Saturn in Pisces. So what occurs is that now this Mercury and Mars in Scorpio start to pick up on a bigger picture. Now, the planets in Scorpio dig in to what needs to be investigated and understood. There is a desire to face something in order to evolve it. That Scorpio energy is passionate and emotionally intense. It is determined, strategic, and very aware that a lot can be happening beyond what we see right at first. And so here we have these two planets digging in to that in Scorpio drive and wanting to intensely transform a fear. Where have you felt blocked, paralyzed, stuck in the shadows or behind the scenes? Where have you felt that you haven't known how to move forward? What do I do with this? How do I move this energy? Maybe you're holding a lot of feelings. Maybe you have this emotional drive that you want to do something with. What's going to occur starting around, or right after, I should say, the Libra new moon, is that solutions present themselves around what to do, what actions to take, how to move it forward, because both Mercury and Mars together in Scorpio are digging in to what could be acted on, strategized, or planned. And by the time they reach this water grand trine degree point, they're now in that third decan of Scorpio, which is the phoenix rising from the ashes. So whatever fears you have been facing, whatever you are willing to look at and transform, this could be even a simple acknowledgement of, I really want to grow in this area of my life. I want to be better here. I want to have a new reality in this experience. I'm ready to work with what I'm feeling and to trust myself more, to trust my feelings, but also to trust my intuition even more. So this could be where you're making some new pledges, vows, and promises to yourself, where you're saying, this is going to be energy I want to invite in and live with. I want this to be a part of my experience that I trust more readily and more often. And so as the planets move through that third decan of Scorpio, you're going to feel a new conviction around what is true for you. Scorpio wants you to connect with a truth, and maybe that truth has been limited or ignored because of a fear. Now there's something you've got to face. And the universe says it's time. It's time to evolve this. It's time to change this. It's time to work with this fear as a catalyst for powerful growth and to make changes that are needed, especially on your ascension journey. And so this really is strong around that Libra new moon on October 21st, October 22nd. And then what happens is these planets move forward throughout Scorpio season. The sun eventually comes into this water grand trine aspect, illuminating something that's been in the darkness of your own unconsciousness, brings a part of your psyche to the forefront. This energy moving through Scorpio is about psychologically reprogramming ourselves, working with our own emotional fears and depths to elevate them, to move through what has been holding us back. So after Mercury and Mars make the water grand trine, then the sun comes through and does the same. And then we have a Mercury retrograde, which also continues to create this water grand trine. Now, Mercury retrograde begins on November 9th at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, and Mercury travels back to 20 degrees of Scorpio until November 29th. And it's because of this Mercury retrograde that moves back into that third decan of Scorpio that this water grand trine continues into December. So that means that Mercury is a very important player here in how we are reprogramming our thoughts, our fears, and our emotional imprints and changing something permanently for ourselves. This is where you can have some very intense counseling, therapy, or healing work to look at a fear. Maybe it's a fear from a past life or a previous experience. Maybe it's a fear that you've never really challenged before, but now you want to look at it. Maybe it's a fear that you feel has permeated so many of your lifetimes. Maybe this is something where you go into past life regression or Akashic Records work to get into the heart of where it originated from and to change the imprint at that core level. Whatever the case may be, Mercury is important here because Mercury keeps interacting with this water grand trine into December. So we're going to have to give ourselves space and room to keep investigating, to keep researching, what is this about? What am I meant to understand at an even deeper level than I even knew existed? And our minds are going to be in this intense reprogramming stage because Mercury in Scorpio wants to know all the secrets, wants to see all the evidence, show me all the truth, what's the full story. This is a Mercury that does not give up until everything is on the table and revealed. So we're going to have very big revelations here, especially around matters that were done in the dark, things that were hidden or kept out of sight, those secrets that they don't want to be publicly seen or acknowledged. There's going to be a lot coming up and out here into the middle of December because of this water grand trine and especially Mercury saying there's more to the story. And because this unfolds for nearly 2 months, I will be discussing it more on my weekly Wednesday podcast episodes as well. It's important to acknowledge that also in the mix will be Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Neptune re-enters Pisces and hangs out at 29 degrees from October 22nd until January 26th. Neptune is also a part of this water grand trine story because Neptune at 29 degrees of Pisces is the very end of the full zodiac wheel. It's the end of a 165-year cycle. It's the completion point that leads to extinction, voids, and severe closures. So a lot of endings are happening with this Neptune in Pisces. We're going to see more permanent changes unfolding across the world. There's going to be things that close out for good, never to be resurrected, never to come back. Our collective consciousness is moving forward. We are learning from where we've been unconscious. We are learning where there has been too much false glamour, false light, propaganda, lies, half-truths, idealizations. You get the gist, where all of that is now giving way to new truths in understanding, new chapters on our planet. So we have a lot of endings that will be unfolding as well over the next few months into early 2026. And the water grand trine can support us in dealing with all the feelings that come up around it, dealing with the grief, sadness, and loss, being able to have some healthy expressions in allowing those true feelings to be felt. The water grand trine can also open up our hearts to tap into more compassion and empathy for each other, to remember that we are all human beings having this experience on the planet, and we share this earth, we share these physical spaces. This can be something that actually brings us together and reminds us of what it means to be human, to have a heart, to connect emotionally, to share love, to be love, and what it means to amplify more of that on the planet. How can we be more peace-focused? How can we be more accepting of our differences? How can we continue to co-create more beauty on the planet, even in the smallest ways? How can we support one another in an authentic, pure place that is open and inviting? And even if that's not on a grand scale, how can you bring that into your daily experience? How can you be kinder and more heart-based in your everyday interactions with others? It's all too easy to keep looking at our phones instead of looking each other in the eye. It's more normal to be pulled into distractions or focus on things that are exciting but only momentarily passing by. I feel that this water grand trine is going to bring us into some deeper truths around how we want to live our lives that support our emotional well-being, that create joy and true love connections, and also reinforces how we connect with each other through our shared human experiences. And of course, we have very different human experiences as well. And from a soul growth perspective, that's beautiful. That's perfect. Because there are things you are here to uniquely experience based on your soul's intentions. And when you see yourself through that lens, it allows you to see others through that lens as well, where maybe they don't have to have the exact same life experiences as you do, but you can understand that that's what makes you individuals and different in the human journey, but still similar in sharing this lifetime together and all of these big energies that we're moving through. Now, getting back to the specifics of this water grand trine, with Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer holding court in these particular areas of your chart, more of the movement and change is happening in the Scorpio sections of your chart. So it's that third decan of Scorpio where the personal planets are all moving through, perhaps bringing you to more fears that you're ready to face, evolve, and transform. I mentioned how Mercury is very important here. Mars is, of course, important. The Sun is going to highlight what you need to see. And then we'll have Venus move through Scorpio and bring your attention to parts of yourself you haven't fully loved and accepted. Now, with these planets moving through Scorpio, I think this is where we're going to be connecting with more of our true power and what it means to show up powerfully in this lifetime without letting previous experiences, imprints, or emotions hold you back. So again, doing that deep inner work could be very rewarding right now, or maybe you already have. I mean, with these energies happening in the late degrees of the water signs, you're ready for a transition. Maybe you're ready for that plot twist, for things to finally move and bust through and start to flow at a whole new level. This could be a culmination of movement for you, a lot of change finally happening that you sensed was coming or you sensed it was going to show up. I do feel a strong divine timing influence with this water grand trine, and it means that we are opening up into new parts of ourselves that are ready to be expressed and felt. That is a big part of our ascension journey, where we're able to be more in our love-based frequencies, less in our fear-based frequencies, and then allow that to permeate our auras and extend out into the world. All that to say, I think that this is going to be a time of beautiful connections arriving, strong relationships, strong friendships and partnerships forming. This is where you could have an elevation in trusting yourself, in loving and accepting yourself at a core level. I think this is going to bring out some very deep, permanent changes in our emotional bodies. I'm sensing a transcendence here of rising above previous versions of self, of having more of a fullness in the heart. In fact, I'm seeing that heart chakra not only bloom and explode, but it extending up into the crown chakra, and there's more of a flow of energy that moves between your intuition and your higher self, down into your heart. I'm even seeing the higher heart blooming and opening, and that higher heart is located behind you on the upper back. That higher heart can be a direct energy lineage to your higher self that can flood you with more unconditional love of self and others, which then, of course, changes your electromagnetic field. Because a water grand trine is also very self-contained, this could be something that you feel internally as these energies move through and flush out the old. There is purging here. There are removals, especially with the parade of planets in Scorpio, because part of that Scorpio transformation process is the permanent ending of one way of being. And so there is a need here to elevate and intentionally work with parts of yourself that maybe you haven't liked. You haven't fully embodied or welcomed it into your experience. Maybe parts of yourself that you have hated, rejected, abandoned, parts that haven't been fully loved and accepted. So this is where that deep inner work can come through. Again, it can be very private and internal, but the Scorpio energy will also guide you to those you can trust, to people you can open up to and share with, to know that you're not alone, that what you're feeling is probably a very normal part of the human experience, and to remind you that you don't have to figure it all out on your own. The water signs can be very private and introverted, and so opening up to trust another could feel like a big deal, and yet this is where you are being receptive. You are trusting that you are worthy of being seen, loved, and supported. And for some people, they might find that they finally have a willingness to share who they are or share themselves more vulnerably with others. The water signs can be vulnerable when they are trusting and when they are open to others. This vulnerability can increase intimacy and people really knowing who you are. It also means that you're stepping outside of any preconceived notions of the ego, the self-identity, the mind, and just being real in terms of sharing your human experience and what you've been through. So there could certainly be many more openings here where people are willing to share more of who they are, more of what they've been through, how it's made them feel, and how they've grown from it. And one more thing is just a reminder that this is going to deeply support development of any of your intuitive abilities. Clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance is going to be expanding and moving. You could have more sudden breakthroughs. You could have more things that show up and give you messages. Oh my goodness. As I'm recording this, I just got the alert that there's a flood watch in effect. That's based on where I'm at right now. A flood watch, as we're talking about a water grand trine. So you could surely be flooded by what is coming through and what you're feeling. One thing to keep in mind that I'm sensing is don't punish yourself for what you didn't previously know. Don't beat yourself up. Because part of this opening is to do so with self-compassion and self-forgiveness. And those could be some themes as well, that you're forgiving yourself or you're forgiving another, and you're allowing it to wash through you, to be removed, to be something you learn from, you grow from, but it doesn't leave a permanent imprint. It's meant to move. And as this warning says, maybe it's flooded out, right? Maybe it's just completely removed and you don't need it anymore, and it's time to move on. And that would be one thing to keep in mind. Ultimately, this water grand trine is supporting you in moving forward at an emotional level, moving forward in your own consciousness, in your own psychological development, and moving forward in your spiritual development. And it's unfolding over an extended period of time, right? Almost 2 months. So yes, we will keep discussing this, probably to the point of you saying, Molly, enough. We've already heard about this. But hey, if the cosmos is bringing us nearly 2 months of a water grand trine with Saturn and Jupiter, that's a big deal. Expect some life changes here. Expect some things that are going to be fulfilling, happy, love-based. Expect divine timing to come through for you. And also expect some beautiful manifestations that you deserve. And even if you've been waiting, I'm hearing some of you have been waiting for years. You know, there's things that show up for reasons that we don't always know the timing. We don't know why it's happening now and not next year, or happening now and not 4 years ago. We don't know in terms of all of the specifics, but allow this to be a movement of trust, faith, and harmony that takes you forward in some capacity. And even if it's only internally, even if you're just feeling this energy working within you, you could be powerfully transmuting energies that you've held for lifetimes, and that is worth celebrating. So we will certainly see how this unfolds, and I hope this gives you a good heads up at what to look at in your chart. So again, you want to identify where you have 22 to 29 degrees of Cancer, 22 to 29 degrees of Scorpio, and 22 to 29 degrees of Pisces, as these are the 3 houses in your chart that are connecting this water grand trine energy and where you're going to have the movement and growth that I've been talking about in today's show. And if you do not have any planets or points in the late degrees of the water signs, you will still feel this. It just won't be as intense or as personal for you. Whereas if you do have planets or points in the late degrees of the water signs, this is going to be something that you're working with on a daily basis and that you're feeling more powerfully. So I hope this gives you a good heads up on how to work with the water grand trine that we will keep discussing. And as always, wishing you a beautiful journey through these cosmic weathers. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back every Monday and Wednesday for a new podcast episode. And please check out my YouTube channel where I share with you even more updates and teaching videos. You want to look at the playlists too, because I have a ton of playlists with all kinds of astrology topics, including beginner information if you need that. Just go to where it says start here and you will start to learn a lot more about astrology and even more about your own chart. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll connect with you again soon. Take good care.